Okay, does this work in the West? Well, the quick answer is the gospel works everywhere. So it's not a gospel problem. The biggest barrier in the West is deep down, we're not convinced anymore that the gospel can change lives. And because we've discovered wherever we train, even in tough soils, where maybe 90% of people here in Britain, they're not ready to hear the gospel from their perspective. But you know, 10% are, and that's millions of people out there. And so we just go looking for them. And we'll offer to pray for someone and then just ask them, are you near or far from God? Would you like to be nearer? Could I share with you how you could be near to God? You know, we find every day we could find people who are saying, yeah, tell me about this. What does it mean? And yeah, I'm interested. Well, maybe 9 out of 10, you know, they don't mind that you've shared with them, but they're not particularly interested. And that's what Jesus said. It wasn't easy for Jesus to share the gospel with Jewish people in his day in Palestine. He almost got himself killed in his hometown. So it's not like it's easier somewhere else, but it begins with what God has done for us in Jesus and how he has set us free through his death and resurrection. And that changes everything. And whereas in the West, we've spent maybe the last 100 years talking about missionaries and mission and missions and missional, and I hope I'm going to plan to get the rights on post-missional. But we haven't done a lot in terms of just connecting and sharing with people and then helping them take the next step in discipleship. You can find people like that in your neighborhood. You're just going to have to work to do it. And then what Jesus did, and Paul did, and the others, Paul didn't have it easy either. But they start with those most receptive people who are responding to the reality of God that they're encountering through the Word and the Holy Spirit and the messenger. And they start building community off that. And through those people, like a Cornelius or a woman at the well or Lydia, the businesswoman, they start reaching relational networks. And I'll guarantee you, everywhere where we train and mobilize, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, here in Britain, or through my partners in the US, we do those things and people start implementing. Well, they're finding people who want to turn and believe in Jesus. And they're learning. It's harder. It's definitely harder in the West, not to find responsive people, but for the gospel to spread through relational networks. Just because of the fragmentation of the family and of relationships in the postmodern world. But it does happen. And relationships are still key to reaching this world. So I don't think so much we have a problem with our theologizing and our concepts and our missional creative thinking. That's not really where I want to go. So we do have a problem with those things. I think we just have a problem with obedience, of taking the gospel as a living, dynamic force that we see throughout scriptures and in the book of Acts that changes lives, and the result of that dynamic gospel spreading throughout the world will always be new disciples and new churches formed. So rather than despair on why it doesn't happen, I'm sort of hanging out with the crazy people who don't know enough to know that it can't happen in the West. And I'm learning from them, whether they're in Paris or the Czech Republic or Manchester, UK, or down in Essex in the south, or whether they're in London or whether they're working with refugees in Italy. I'm looking for people, and in the US, who are in Western contexts and are beginning to see the fruit of disciples, church formation, and even the multiplication of churches. And we're taking those lessons and distributing those, disseminating those lessons to the people who are on the front line, because that's where the answers are to be found.